One of the greatest things about Commonwealth is the faculty. Not only are they amazing at teaching, but they are also extremely dedicated to their job and helping their students succeed. I remember coming into Commonwealth unsure about whether I would be able to do the work. I was well aware of Commonwealth's reputation as one of the hardest high schools. I was especially insecure about my writing skills because English is my second language. I can vividly remember failing an in-class essay assignment in Ms. Brewster's English 9 class. I was terrified and began crying when I saw that F. I was petrified to ask Ms. Brewster for help because I was embarrassed and ashamed of having failed. But I forced myself to ask her, and since that day, began having weekly meetings with her. Those meetings proved to be very helpful. Since then, I have always had weekly meetings with my English teachers, and as a result, my writing and reading comprehension skills have gradually improved over the next couple of years. But my real breakthrough happened last year in 2 history classes. I had the privilege of working with 2 amazing teachers, Ms. Haber for U.S. History and Ms. Grant for Modern East Asia, a class I absolutely loved. Both history classes were writing intensive, which meant that I had to write weekly papers for each of them. Ms. Grant helped me discover a passion for history and become a more confident historian. Ms. Haber taught me to write more penetrating and analytical complex sentences. As a result of all this help, I was able to produce a well-written research paper I was passionate about. My research paper explored the origins of the gang Mara Salvatrucha, also known as MS-13, and its influence in Central America as well as the United States. This gang originated in 1984 in the Pico Union neighborhood of Los Angeles, a common destination for Salvadorian immigrants fleeing the devastation of the Civil War at home. In fact, many of its members were traumatized ex-combatants of the Salvadorian Civil War that raged throughout the 80s. It began as a relatively benign gang, whose main priority was smoking marijuana and listening to rock music. But by the 90s and 2000s, it had become one of the most dangerous and brutal gangs in the country. As a way to control its growth, the United States implemented harsh immigration policies in the early 2000s to deport thousands of criminals back to their homes. In the end, these policies simply facilitated the proliferation and globalization of the gang as they sought new members at home. They began collaborating with transnational drug trafficking networks such as Los Zetas and the Sinaloa Cartel, and ironically, established themselves even more strongly in the United States. Today, there is an epidemic of gang violence in El Salvador, which is giving Salvadorian civilians more incentive to immigrate to the United States. In fact, my uncle was murdered by members of Mara Salvatrucha in 2004. He had been a member of the gang and went to jail. When he got out, he wanted to live a decent life, free of gangs and the problems and dangers that came with it. He had forgotten Mara Salvatrucha's first rule. Once you're a part of the gang, you are in for life. The only way out is death. And that's what he got. With his death came an end to my childhood. Until then, I lived happily with my grandfather in El Salvador, in a 1-bedroom brick house surrounded by mango and cashew trees. My grandfather was completely devastated by his murder and began drinking, despite having been advised not to by his doctor because he was diagnosed with colon cancer. When he passed away in June 2004, my sisters and I were left without a guardian to take care of us because both my parents had already emigrated to the US for work. I was 10 years old when my mother was forced to come to El Salvador and bring us to the land of opportunity with her. Although I miss home, I know that I have to take advantage of every opportunity available to me. I, as well as my mother, am particularly focused on education. That is why I came to Commonwealth, even though the academics are challenging. But I have been able to do well, thanks to the help and dedication of my teachers, as well as my hard work. Commonwealth, however, has been more than just academically challenging. I live in two different worlds, the world at school and the one at home. I have to balance two very different cultures. At school, I embrace American culture as much as possible to try to fit in. For instance, I have often found myself trying to suppress my accent or worrying about mispronouncing a word while reading out loud in English class. I feel like I'm an outsider because there aren't many people, students or faculty, who are like me or who come from similar backgrounds. When I go home, I have to switch characters and embrace Latin American culture more as a way to fit in with my family and my community. I have to do this because my family doesn't understand what going to Commonwealth means or what it's like. For instance, when I was practicing this speech at home with my sister, I had to skip the previous sentence. Finding a balance between the two has been almost impossible, but it has been worth it. Next year, I will be attending Brandeis University, planning to major in Hispanic Studies. I want to major in that because I want to learn more about my heritage and help disadvantaged communities in whatever career I decide to pursue. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the art show.